You got one life, for crying out loud. You might as well just give it all you got.
The Deej, Dan Jordan.
Your daily dose of reality. Your daily dose of the Deej.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I need my daily dose of the Deej.
I make the news. I don't watch the news. I'm a leader.
The Sales Energizer, Dan Jordan.
Listen, don't worry how to sell, baby. Worry about why people buy. And it's fun.
You don't need a 5-hour energy. All you need is the Sales Energizer.
Just when I think it's not going to be as fun as the one before, each one gets successfully better. What's the word I'm looking for? What's it going to take to get you into this car today, huh?
And now, please welcome the Sales Energizer, Dan Jordan.
It's that time of the week.
I'm trying to time it properly, but it's good. Actually, I've gotten into this week was a lot easier for me to keep it up, because I've been doing push-ups. I'm back on my push-up routine.
You are looking a little more pumped up today. I don't, whoa.
I'm excited for Curt. That's what it is. But what happens is, so I got this routine, and I just, my morning routine is very important. But I have like a million things to do before I leave the house. And so I started making lists. I mean, lists for everything. Wake up, check. Brush your teeth, check. And so you put on there push-ups. And so you have to do your set of push-ups. And then you do another task. And then there's another thing, push-ups. So I can't leave the house until I do my push-ups. And then, look at this, my sleeves are coming out here. And then, like in between each task, let's say you're starting a new task at work, that little break period, push-ups. So you got to do the push-up. So man, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling great.
Is it the clothes? Like you feel like you've got to stay in shape for the new clothes.
You got to
dresstheman.com.
I know, that's right. You spend a few grand on clothes, and then if you gain weight and you can't fit them, so you feel like an idiot and you wasted the money. So it's like a double whammy.
Right.
Also, I want to thank you, Chris Stone, not just because of your cast ahead, building the empire here because of your production value, but you and I think it was Mark Hayes, you were talking about your vegetarianism or whatever you're doing. Anyway,
we call it plant-based now, Dan.
Oh yeah, because you're cool. Yeah. That's right, plant-based.
Yeah, I mean, that's at least that's how you're supposed to brand it.
So no eggs.
Well, yeah. Well, eggs are not plant-based. They come from an animal. So technically that's vegan, but vegetarians can eat eggs and drink milk. I know.
Well, anyway, I think you're right. So these are simple things that you can do in your life to give you more energy. And I think the biggest thing that your body has to do, the biggest user of energy, is digestion. And if you can make the digestion easier, I mean, you have leftover energy to talk to Stephen Rudnick and Pat Tinney and our next guest here today.
Yeah. So the next guest that we have, and it's a little bit of an introduction for those of you who are watching Dan Jordan live for the first time, because our guest, has a big following, and he's done a great job in promoting this particular show as well. The way this thing goes is it's interactive. So we'd love to hear from you. Give us a shout out in the comments, in the chat. We're on YouTube, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, and all the tubes. So, it's interactive. You got any questions? You got any comments? You want to tell Dan he needs to do 50 more push-ups? Yeah. Dan might even do push-ups for you live here on Dan Jordan Live, just to back up that comment. But our guest today, we've been trying to get him on for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And it's not because Curt Mercadante did not want to be on the show, but this man truly lives the freedom lifestyle.
We were literally chasing him around the country.
Yeah, he's just decided that, and we'll get into it with him and talk about it. But he was like, I want to be able to get with us. I've got a solid Wi-Fi. We're bouncing around to Airbnbs. We're in the mountains. We're all over the country, traveling with his family, living that freedom lifestyle, yet still being a serial entrepreneur. But we finally got him locked in. He's got a solid Wi-Fi and lighting too. So I'm like honored to be able to introduce to the Dan Jordan Live tribe, if you will, the principal and founder of Merc Enterprises, and also the host of Freedom Mindset Radio and the Authority Brand podcast. He's also the author of 5 Pillars of the Freedom Lifestyle. Please welcome to Dan Jordan Live, brand expert and serial entrepreneur, Mr. Curt Mercadante. Welcome,
you gotta put your arms up.
Yeah,
Curt.
there we go. There we go.
Gotta...
Yeah. I got you seen any armpit hair there? Yeah, no, thank you, Chris and Dan, for having me on. I really appreciate it. But I don't know if I'm welcome here. I'm carnivore, I eat, all I eat is meat.
Fine.
Oh. But what I've noticed, so I actually, because I'm a learner, I went out and got my Primal Health Coach certificate. And I had stomach problems. I had a lot of problems for years. And in 2009, I read a blog post by Tim Ferriss. Actually, it was a guest blog post by a guy named Rob Wolf, who wrote the Paleo Diet Solution. And all the symptoms he was talking about, I had. So it was the day after Thanksgiving. I said, I'm going cold turkey. I think all that day I ate was hot dogs because I didn't do any. And my health has never been better. But last year, I had a big live event. And in order to test if I could get in a fully meditative state, clear focus, I actually just went full on carnivore. So I say I'm about 99%. That 1% is red wine and a little bit of bourbon, but maybe not a little bit. But and so I do that. But what I've noticed is, and I've read up a lot on this, if you're on the vegetarian side, as long as you're not the vegetarian that just eats pizza all day, right, and 5 loaves of bread, or if you're on the other side all the way, you're where everyone gets into trouble is in the middle.
You're right.
And that's a lot of the studies you see. Eggs are bad for your health, but they study people who ate a lot of eggs, but they also ate McDonald's and 4 other, and so.
I agree. I think it's us obsessive compulsives that are in the best health, because we'll go all out, or we'll be dead because, if we try drugs once, we're like, yeah, I'm after it. And so then you become that. So it's one of it's either really healthy or dead.
Yeah. And it's the obsessive compulsives right now who aren't on 8 prescription drugs and are feeling pretty darn good about their lot in life because I don't need to mask problems with prescriptions. So,
gosh, is this guy good? Now, did it help your beard grow? That's the main thing.
It may have, I don't know. My beard is a lot shorter than it used to be. In April, I got, I couldn't go to my barber. I'd never trimmed my beard. I started messing it up and I said, screw it. And the whole thing came off. And my 6-year-old son started crying when he saw me because he didn't recognize me and wouldn't look at me for 24 hours. So I grew that.
Wouldn't look at you for 24 hours?
Would not even come out of his room to look at me.
Oh, that's funny.
He said I looked like a giant egg because I had no hair on my, so it must be an egg with big eyebrows. But
that's all. Good. Is he a carnivore?
Yeah. Go ahead.
You know what? Our family is, they go in the, I would say, more paleo primal direction because it was just easier. My wife discovered after a while, first of all, she started following the diet and it impacted her with our last 2 kids. The first 2 kids, she had a lot of complications. The last 2 kids, none. And a lot of it was just ease of, I don't want to make several separate meals. I'm just throwing this meat in a crock pot and some carrots, and then that's it. And
isn't that great?
Yeah.
The crock pot or the instant pot. Do you have an instant pot yet?
I don't, but I've heard about it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You have a pressure cooker?
No.
Are you out of? You know what we ought to do?
This feels like a pressure cooker.
That's you and me, Curt. We ought to go. We have to start an Amazon live cast show, and that way we could talk like this and sell a bunch of pressure cookers and crock pots.
There you go. I'd love it. Home shopping.
Just when you thought the show was going to be about sales and your authority brand. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Paleo Show, starring Curt Mercadante and Dan Jordan. But before we roll into what everyone's tuned in for, I think to your point, Curt, it's like, and I was the same way. I went full, carnivore, paleo for a while. I had stomach issues. I went plant-based. Things got better for me. And then it's about finding the balance, because I think every person's different. Is built differently, and you can take some of those principles and apply it to your own life to where you feel like, this is the healthiest way to be, and obviously in line with people who are actually doctors, unlike myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the key on either side is it's anti-inflammatory, and the inflammation is what causes lots of things. And right now with COVID going on, inflammation is like the last thing I want in my life. So
really? So that's your thing. My dad used to say, if you have your health, you have hope. And if you have hope, you have everything. So that was his thing. That's pretty good, huh?
Well, it's that is absolutely true. And I was at a point where I had a 7-figure PR and ad agency, and my health wasn't good. And I used to say my mental health, and I stopped separating out mental and physical health because it's all one-on-one. But none of it was good. But I was making money. We had the nice house. I was doing what I was supposed to do. And one day I woke up and I was sick of anxiety attacks, sick of the pain, sick of I was 60 pounds heavier than I am now on a cocktail of prescription drugs, wasn't being a good husband, wasn't being a good father. And I woke up, actually next Tuesday will be the four-year anniversary of me waking up in the morning and saying, I'm done. And I went to my wife and I said, I'm done. And she said, because I'm a guy, so I thought I had been hiding it. And she looked at me and said, oh, it's about time. And I shut it down. I fired my clients that same day and went into what I wanted to do, which was help entrepreneurs, small business owners, medium-sized businesses be more productive, profitable, and purposeful.
Now, for all you watching this, and you too, Chris Stone, that is what a professional segue looks like.
There you go.
Did you see that? How easily it went in there? That's how you know he's a pro.
You can tell stuff. I used to work in politics, right?
Amen.
I've done a few of these things.
That's cool. Well, so tell me, I love your tagline. Go ahead and say it again, because I saw it on your website.
Yeah, I help entrepreneurs, executives, and enterprises become more purposeful, productive, and profitable.
I mean, isn't that so? People in sales have a tough time, or in small business in general, even executives for larger companies have a tough time kind of explaining succinctly what they do, how they build that message. You're obviously a pro at it. So how do you help people kind of find what their purpose is?
Yeah. So in terms of what their purpose is on a personal level, I wrote that book, 5 Pillars of the Freedom Lifestyle, and it's about really determining and crafting and defining. And really what it is, it's unearthing is your vision, whether you die in 20 minutes or 20 years. And if you're going to build a business, by the way, you can't just define work and really get in clear and define that and try to shoehorn in everything else. It's about, if you want to build a business instead of a prison and have a sense of freedom, which is why most of us build a business, you've got to build it with a sense of alignment in mind, aligning work, relationships, and self-care. Because I tell a lot of people, oh, you're seeking work-life balance. It's a myth. It doesn't exist. Why? Because you're assuming that work is over here and life is over here. There's just life, and there's 3 facets of life. So the key is aligning them. It's like the yin and the yang. Some people look at it and it's like, oh, it's order over here and chaos over here. It's good over here. It's bad over here. It's masculine over here and it's feminine over here. No, the point of yin and yang is alignment. It's all rolled up into one bowl and going around. That's what you have to do with your life as well. It's alignment. And so when you build your business, you have to have that in mind, because I know a lot of people, I was one, who build their business without a sense of purpose, without a sense of vision in their life. And so it spills over into their business. Their business becomes a prison, which affects health, self-care, relationships.
I love that. I love the fact. I love how you said,
Hold
don't make it a prison for you.
I got to take some notes. I'm getting my pad here. Go ahead.
Okay. So Dan, what we'll do in the meantime, is the prison, which is the a word from our sponsor, Dan Jordan Enterprises.
Well, if your sales team sucks and you don't know what to do, call Deej 678-910-9912. Call Deej 678-910-9912.
Okay, now he's ready to take notes.
Oh my gosh.
Well, that's really important what you said earlier. But people try to find their purpose. But there's people are in different stages of life and in different stages of their business. So early on, when people would say, I want work-life balance, I had a very straightforward line. I go, dude, you don't want more balance. You want more money. And it was just that was my line that I would give them all the time. Then I got a little older. And I realized there's something more. There is some level, of more than just money. But if someone's not ready to accept that, what do you do?
Well, if people aren't ready, they're not ready, right? And we often in life, I'd say most often, we're motivated more by the perceived pain or fear of change, or fear of the status quo or pain, than we are by the pursuit of happiness. And so sometimes, like for me, people are like, well, why, you idiot? Why didn't you get your agency ready to sell? Well, okay. If I had done that a few years before and built that runway, that would have been great, but I was in denial because that pain wasn't big enough. The subtitle of my book was Escaping Your Comfort Zone of Misery. And Henry David Thoreau said that the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. That quiet desperation can often be more dangerous than loud desperation, because when it gets loud, you're backed into a corner. It's fight or flight time, or freeze. And some people freeze until the pain is even greater. So when it gets so loud, for me, it was loud. Boom, I'm done. But it sure would have been nice had I recognized that years earlier. So some people aren't ready. And I have people who regularly speak to me and I can sense they're ready, but they're not ready yet. And it's sales, right? They come back to me when they're ready. And I keep that pipeline going. I keep those conversations going, communicate impact the best way I can. And some people are going to do it. Some people are not, which is why, I like to say that branding, lead generation, and sales is more about cooperation than coercion. And in kind of this hustle and grind pornography culture, right? There's a lot of celebrity gurus who are like, it's adrenaline, it's cortisol, it's Glengarry Glen Ross, drink your coffee and force people through the funnel. And that's just, seems to me like a horrible way to wake up in the morning and go through life. Not to mention you'll make some money that way, but not very effective either in the long term.
That's funny. Yeah. I often tell people when they're hiring people that the lousy salespeople are better than the average salesperson, because the lousy salesperson will just leave. The average salespeople are just good enough to stick around and make the whole place average.
Yeah.
And so it kind of makes the whole thing. So you got to a point, but so here's what someone's going to say to you. Well, great, big shot, big old Curt there, fancy guy with your 7-figure, company and all this stuff. Good. You wake up one day and do this, but I'm just starting. I got to feed my family, tough guy. I can't do this purpose business. What do you say to that person?
Well, I say to them that I was pretty stupid because I hadn't saved money. And so we immediately went from well off to living beyond our means. At one point, my company bank account went to $250. We have 4 kids, 2 cars, had a huge mortgage. So, folks who have that type of mindset, it's a scarcity mindset. It's all about what other people have. Well, that's nice for you. You go on a nice vacation and they're like, must be nice. You're the type of person who not you, but the type of person who watches Shark Tank, right? And I've seen this happen. And you sit there and you watch Shark Tank and you're like, those fat cats have enough money. That's a scarcity mindset. And if you have a scarcity mindset, chances are you were programmed that way since you were 1, and you probably had parents who said the same thing, and you had teachers, and you went to church and heard it from the church pulpit. And so now you're conditioned to have that scarcity mindset. And if you are so concerned about the privilege of someone else, and you're so concerned about what other people have, and you can't do it because we also have something called struggle porn, where you get a lot of likes and views by talking about the struggle. And so some people, Randy Gage, awesome prosperity guru, talks about, the myth of the struggle, that you have to struggle, so you self-sabotage. It's because you're so worried about what other people have and you don't. Who cares? Who cares if you're more privileged than I? And people are going to say, well, you sound like someone privileged saying that. Okay, how does that get you out of the rut you're in now? And an abundance mindset looks and says, okay, it's not a finite pie, right? Where Dan gets a slice and Chris gets a slice, and damn them, there's no more for me. We know throughout human history, if you live in a free society, a generally free society, we make more pies or make a bigger pie and there's more slices, but people are so stuck in that scarcity mindset that they don't understand that happens. And my goodness, this year, I wrote the book last year, and this year it's like the scarcity pimps. I call them scarcity pimps. They're out in full force, whether you talk about COVID, lockdowns, whatever it is. And I'm saying, be safe, respect other people. But my gosh, the world is an amazing place. And we're still here, by the way. Like, all humans should be dead, given all the things much worse than what we're going through now. And,
I'm literally biting my tongue. Like, it's not even like I figure I'm biting it because you're so preaching to. I feel like I'm talking to the mirror. This is the greatest thing. I had this conversation yesterday with my mother, who has that scarcity mindset and is worried about everything, and the world's blowing up and wants to die and all this stuff. Well, she doesn't want to die. She thinks I'm going to die. Anyway, it was the same thing. It's an ever expanding pie. There's enough for everybody. It's so good. It's opportunities like before. Everything, every challenge that you're facing, you could find in the mirror, and that's how to fix it.
Yeah. So Curt, I've got a question, because you're talking about the scarcity mindset and an abundance mindset. So I know, in addition to not only being an author and a podcaster, which I'd love to talk about as well, but I mean, you're also a speaker, you're a coach, you're a trainer, and so when you're talking to entrepreneurs and you're talking to people who have businesses that you can tell have that scarcity mindset, what are some practical things that you talk to them about moving towards that abundance mindset, as opposed to saying, listen, you have this mindset, you need to get to this particular mindset? What are some practical things that maybe somebody that realizes, that's watching this now or hearing this, in the future, they're like, yeah, that's me. How do I move past that?
Yeah. The first thing is, I never tell them they have a scarcity mindset, and I help them uncover that through stories, through questions, asking questions. And it's sales, right? The number one thing we do is listen. I think that's the primary sales tool, is our ears, not our mouths. And as someone who's a speaker and an Italian Catholic who likes to talk, I got to shut up, often. And you ask those questions, but there's one simple question that, if you start applying this in your life, can just shift everything. And it sounds so simple, and it comes from Robert Kiyosaki. And he said it was a big change that he wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and his rich dad was actually a friend's father who had an abundance mindset. The poor dad was his dad, who worked as a government worker, and actually told him, if you want to learn how to make money and be successful, don't talk to me. And that question was this: it was a shuttle shift. If you look at something, instead of saying, I can't afford that, right? That's a close-ended question to ask yourself. It's a statement. I can't afford that. Instead, ask yourself, how can I afford that? And that has to do with money, and it has to do with material goods. But if you just applied a variation of that question to everything in your life, that would immediately shift you toward an abundance mindset. Because you're not saying, I can't do this. You're saying, how can I do that? I really want that. How could I do that?
Is this guy saying, you're stealing all my material? I do that in terms of sales. How do I get a new customer today?
Yeah.
How do I find a new customer today? It's everything. As soon as something breaks, how do I fix that?
But all of it, we started talking about diet, and we started talking about these things. Sales, all of this is involved in that, because if you wake up in the morning, right, and you have that, I think because of that adrenaline type culture we try to build, right, in terms of you get up in the morning and it's about forcing people through the funnel, and right, people have been bred to think they're going to wake up in the morning, get on the phone, and try to coerce people to unwillingly reach into their pocket to give them money for something they don't want to buy. Of course, you're going to be terrified to pick up the phone. But like you said, like, I have a goal. I want to call a minimum of 10 people a day and have conversations with people. If I start there and reverse engineer it, it's like, well, how can I have conversations with those people who are ideal? And I start from there, instead of saying, like you said, no one wants to talk to me today. This person's not going to talk to me today. And it seeps in. I use HubSpot for my CRM, and I use the phone, and I used to have the computer up and everything else before I called people. But you know what I realized? Like, I would well, I'm going to look this person up first. And I'm not saying don't do research on someone, but as I'm calling, I would look them up and I'd look them on LinkedIn. I'm like, I don't like that guy's eyes in his headshot. The headshot was taken 8. This guy's not going to like me. I can tell. And it starts seeping in. So now what I do, I just have the damn phone. I don't look at anyone. I don't even know what their job title is when I call them. I call them. And sometimes I like to play HubSpot roulette. I take the contacts and I spin through them and I go like that. And whoever it lands on, I call.
You want to do it now? I can do it right now. I'm all over them. No,
I think. Are you guys related?
I know it's unbelievable. It's almost unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Well, right? my family's from New York, so maybe
Oh yeah, it's to say. I mean, there's nobody. I just pick up the phone. I have no idea. I'll do it from the phone book. Look at that, Victor Antonio in the house. So how did we meet, Curt?
We met because I commented. Oh, you know what it was? I watched a video and I was laughing hysterically. Doug Lehman, in layman's terms, was on it. That's how I got introduced. He introduced you to my network, or at least me through his network. And then I commented, we connected. I said, I love seeing that. And you called me and we had a conversation.
Did you hear that? I called him. And you guys have no idea what a big dog this guy is. I tell you, he comes off with this like little friendly demeanor over here. This guy's a monster. By the way, if we had a real producer, he'd put up one of your books or something, right?
I was Dan. I literally was just about to do this.
You see, we're in the same.
And the reason why I'm down here in the bottom, and you guys are, elevated above me in the org chart that is the live stream right now. Dan, I'm going to ask to have you move a little bit to your left, Curt, a little bit to your right. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your other right, Curt. Yeah. 5 Pillars of the Freedom Lifestyle, Curt Mercadante, available on Amazon. We'll throw the links in the show in the show notes. I mean, listen, obviously the brand, and when you go to your site and I'm looking over here at this the superhero, very Avengers like brand, and I know you had another logo that incorporated the beard and the colors, and so from a optical branding standpoint, I think you've done a really good job, and that's something I'm very interested in. But I know what you're about is way more than just that optical brand. It's more about identifying your key lead, your key customer, and developing a brand around that, and that's really I guess in layman's terms, so to speak, what the Authority brand is about. So can we talk a little bit more about the Authority brand? And I know you just transitioned out of and maybe closed up shop on a previous podcast and are now full force on this podcast. So I'd love to know, maybe the reasoning behind that and moving from Freedom Mindset Radio into the Authority brand podcast.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And by the way, I do want to give a shout out to one of my heroes, Victor Antonio, from the south side of Chicago, now Atlanta, which Atlanta is well represented here today and in the comments. So Victor, hello. It's interesting. My beard logo, which was basically my head, became kind of a thing, right? And I created it, and it was fun. And I actually had a guy, I went over to do a training program in Cairo, Egypt. And, I flew overnight, this long flight. I flew from Cairo to Dubai, then Dubai to Kennedy. And then I had a 6-hour layover, and I can't sleep on planes. And so I had a fair bit of champagne on the plane. I was tired. I'm coming out of the bathroom in the JetBlue terminal at Kennedy. And someone yells, "Hey, Freedom, beard!" And I turn around. He recognized my face from my logo, took a picture with me. I was like, just so you know, I've been up for like 20 hours and had champagne. But he recognized the logo, and that was great, and that was wonderful. But I'd also have people that came up to me and say, "Hey, Curt," or they'd message me, "Your brand is on point. Look at that logo. Your brand is on point." And my response, I wouldn't be this flippant with them. I'm generally a nice guy, but was, just from seeing my logo, how would you know my brand is on point? And a lot of times we confuse tools and tactics with the brand. Just like, Dan, I'm sure you've seen people confuse a CRM with selling. or those types of things. And I'm not saying those aren't important, but if you don't know some people call it value prop. I call it impact story, because it's all about by the way, the definition of business, and if this isn't the definition of your business, you should get out of it, is making a positive impact on the life of someone else. I don't care if you're selling golf balls or sales training, you're making a positive impact. And when you wake up in the morning and you focus on that, but to Dan's point earlier about people you talk about I shared my impact story with you. Mm-hmm. You said so many salespeople. Yes, the hardest thing to do is come up with our own impact story, because we're in love with ourselves and our product and our features. And so because we're all so smart and we really want to differentiate ourselves from everyone else, what we do is we meet a potential client and we do what I call verbally vomit on them. All our background and our resume and our experience and a client we had from 20 years ago and our bullet points and our bells and our whistles and our features and all of that. And in the end, the client walks away confused and they're asking, what's in it for me? You got to communicate that positive impact to those clients. And by the way, that goes into who is your ideal client? Not just a company, not just an industry, but when I had a PR ad agency, we worked with a lot of trade associations. Yeah, I could line up 10 trade associations of a certain type and say, yeah, that's where most people stop. But guess what? I was hired by humans at that trade association. So if you lined up 10, I would try to identify the 1, the 2, maybe 3, where the person there I knew I was going to click with. Mm-hmm. I knew that person wasn't going to be a pain in the ass. I knew they weren't going to backbite me. I knew. And what was that based on? It was based on data of people I've worked with. People who are going to treat me as a trusted advisor instead of a vendor. When you have those two things, your ideal client really clearly defined. I mean, I have 5 pages of questions I go over with my clients on it, and your impact story. Then you take that and start applying it to the process. Then you can bring in the tools and the tactics, because guess what? I mean, right now we're on StreamYard. That wasn't here 2 years ago. Might not be here next year. I see people joining us from YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter. Who knows? They may not be here, but these timeless principles are still going to be here, whether we have computers, whatever, or Elon Musk has put StreamYards in our brains or whatever, So you got to build that strong foundation.
You're actually living that, because again, what's your on your website? What does it say about you? What's the headline on your website? You help.
My impact story. Yeah. That I help entrepreneurs, executives, and enterprises become more purposeful, productive, and profitable.
Right. So it's just, you're talking exactly about them and not about you.
I love alliteration, by the way. I'm a Churchill buff. And what he learned early on was alliteration would get crowds going wild, even if it made no sense. He would say, and he would it must be important.
That's awesome. Well, that's cool. Well, so you talked a little bit about your impact story, about what happened. You just woke up one day. Did something big happen, or was it just a festering boil in your life? By the way, I've never heard backbiter before. I've heard backstabber, but I've not seen any backbiters before. That's a good one.
Backbiters, yeah. I don't know why I heard that. It's one of those things. Maybe I made it up here.
Yeah, it's a good one.
That could be it too. Alliteration. Doesn't make any sense, but it sounds interesting, right?
That's right. So now I'm going to say backbiter for the rest of my life.
You could really make it powerful. Backbiting bastards.
Oh, that's right.
There we go.
The big one. The big backbiting bastards.
Yeah. So now I forget your question.
The question.
Oh no, yeah. The festering. It was more of a festering boil, I would say. Okay. About 4 years into my company. So I was working at a trade association. I was in my 20s. My dad started kind of a decline. My wife was pregnant with my child, fortunately. And we decided, we don't want to stay here. And we want to move back to Chicago, where our family's from. We were living in Washington, D.C. And so I'd always wanted to run a business. So I said, all right, I'm going to run a business. People are like, oh, you've never been the president of whatever, or the vice president or whatever. And I was like, oh, is that the rule? I didn't know. So I started my company. I had a number of clients. And about 4 years into it, I wanted to give it up, because I didn't focus on ideal clients. Someone offered me money. I took it, even if it was below value. So I built this company up of people giving me money, but I was overwhelmed. I worked from home, but I still never saw my wife, my kids. So we had 2 kids at the time. I would go up into my home office and just disappear. So I wanted to give it up. I did something different instead. I fired half my clients and raised my prices and brought it over 7 figures the next year. I doubled my revenue with less clients. And so that was wonderful. But then I really started to just, quite honestly, not like who I was working with, not liking the clients I was working with. I worked in the public affairs arena, and I had worked in politics. I did a fair bit of political work with my agency, and I just started to get sick of the noise. And I got sick of being part of the problem in creating noise. But I also was working with very large companies and organizations who, quite honestly, I just didn't feel cared enough. And they would just throw money at something and didn't really look at moving the needle beyond likes and views and shares. And I worked with a lot of people who just took themselves too damn seriously. In my book, I write about there was a Sunday, and this was actually a year before I shut it all down. And I flew in to Washington, D.C. on a Sunday night, freezing cold. It was like 12 degrees. Flew in Sunday night for a Monday morning, 8 a.m. meeting at which I had to present. So I did it, flew in. That was great. Before I got started talking, the head of this organization, there was a presentation right before it. And she said, "I'm sorry, Curt, but we got to wait. Everyone in this room is low energy. It's 8 a.m. on a Monday." And by the way, no one was low energy in that room. And we were scolded for like a half hour or 40 minutes about how low energy we were. And we were going to sit there until we figured out the problem. And then, "Oh, now, Curt, it's your turn to speak." Right. And I said, "I'm never coming to this meeting again." But then over the year, you get scared and you're like, well, good paying client. I should just be happy with what I have. Like most people, I looked at gratitude as, guilt and stagnation rather than, no, I deserve something better. And a year went by and nothing happened. And finally, it came forth where it was time for that meeting. And that Tuesday of Thanksgiving week, I was supposed to go the next week to that meeting. And that meeting was coming up. Everyone knew I had the time off, and just the noise was coming in, and it was supposed to be a week off enjoying it with my family. And there I wasn't being a good dad again, good husband. And then it clicked. So it was a festering boil that kind of burst, I guess. And, my dad died in 2012, and that really should have been the wake-up call, but I reverted like we all do. And there's that wake-up call. People go to a Tony Robbins event and they're wonderful for 2 days, and it takes that consistency to build commitment. I just interviewed someone. I just stole that, by the way. Actually her line, Christine Kane, she wrote a book called The Soul Source Entrepreneur. And hers was actually commitment breeds confidence, but it's the same thing. When you commit, you start getting confidence, and then it's easier to be consistent.
That's terrific. Don't worry about the stealing thing. I am going to be stealing so much from you. It's unbelievable. So it's going to be great. Listen, Chris Stone, this show is not just this particular show, but what you've done creating this podcast is something incredible. Not just getting great guests and things like that and putting it together, but I think I found like kindred spirits. I mean, you are like, I swear I'm looking in the mirror 10 years from now with the beard, but I have
and no hair, right?
There you go. But Patrick Tinney, this is like Victor, real friends come out of this show, real connections come out of this. And I think the reason is when you're confident like you are, and you know where you are in the place and you know you're on the right track, you're comfortable with being vulnerable and talking about the tough stuff that people are going through. And I guess that's why people open up to you. I have 2 more things, and then we got to kind of wrap it up because I have a real live customer call today.
We do have some questions in the chat
all
too.
Right,
Dan,
we'll get some questions, but I got
Curt.
something too. So listen, I think you're right with your freedom thing. I think that's the goal of everybody, every business owner. It's freedom, and they just don't know how to get there. And so it's always a fight to get to that freedom. And Michael Gerber said it best. He said, if your business isn't giving you more life, it's taking it away. Yeah. And so your business has to do that for you. And if you can get an executive or a business owner of that right mindset, that they, to run their business like they went into it on the front end, you're doing a great service, not just to them and their family, but I think to all of humanity. And I commend that about you. All right, now ask some questions, you people.
Well, speaking of connectors,
Yes.
Doug Lehman in layman's terms, who we brought up earlier, he's got like let's make this a 2-parter here in the interest of time. As a podcast host, Curt, do you have a dream guest to get on the Authority brand. And then part 2 is Doug wants to know if there's any meaning to the Iron Man picture.
Yes. It. So on the first one, Dan Jordan, come on the show.
If
so
you can handle it.
Yeah. And I've had so many dream guests. In a couple of weeks, I interviewed him last year. Bob Berg, Go Giver. Victor Antonio has been on my show. We've had some incredible people, and it's so interesting that, and this conversation has gone that way, and I'm sure it'll go this way, Dan, when you're on my show, should you choose to accept that mission, is a lot of it ends up going back to mindset, and it ends up going back to these things because, sales, that word sales, like take it out of the equation. And when you really strip it down and you want freedom, a lot of business owners spend their day doing everything but having conversations with potential clients. And they'll tell you, they'll give you good reasons why. Well, I had to service this existing client. It's like, did you pick up the phone and do it because your existing client, by the way, is a potential future client? And just picking up the phone, having those conversations. And a lot of it is fear. A lot of it is priority and time management. But just breaking it down, that it can't get any more simpler. Have conversations with the right people about the impact you provide. And guess what? It's like you could do nothing else in your business and you'll have a successful business. The Iron Man, and by the way, I'm going to attempt to do this. So there's Batman with the beard. There's Iron Man with my beard.
Oh, awesome.
And there's Wolverine with my beard. So
Awesome.
the theme, the reason behind that is I talk about superpowers. So I'm a Gallup-Certified strengths coach. And the number one pillar, the first pillar of building a freedom lifestyle is getting in your superpower zone. We're all born with those untapped superpowers. We call them talents, those naturally occurring patterns of thought, feeling, and behavior that can be productively applied. And when you take those talents and you apply them and invest in them, you turn them in, and you combine them with your skills, you turn them into strengths. Well, I go one step further. When you combine those strengths with your knowledge, your skills, your passion, you show up every day consistently with a good mindset, you begin to unleash your superpowers. So I talk about those all the time. I'm a total Avengers nerd, comic book nerd with my kids. And Ryan Case, I give a shout out to Ryan Case. I met him on LinkedIn when I was on Facebook. I got rid of Facebook. He was on there as well. And he had it was like a vampire picture. And I said, could you do that with Batman with the beard? He's like, oh my gosh, yes. And so that picture over here, he drew. And then I said, oh man, what about Iron Man and Wolverine, my two other favorite superheroes? And he painted those. So now we're in an Airbnb. And I just took down the artwork that was in here and I put them up because it reminds me to get in my superpower zone. And it's better than a white wall for shows like these.
Wow. So it's a BYOP. Bring your own pictures.
There you go.
BYOB to your Airbnb.
Yes.
It's not alliteration, but
you're a backbiter.
It rhymes. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Oh. Well, that is just terrific. I really appreciate it. Are there any other questions there, Chris?
Just a lot of great comments. I mean, obviously, Curt has been
Steve
has been
Rudnick is a school grade friend of mine. It's an awesome dude. Well, listen, I really I can't tell you how important this call was for me. It's almost like validation that maybe I'm on the right track. And along those lines, I learned that a lot of people get a lot of good ideas, but then never put them into practice. Or, they get really good advice, but never take the advice. And one of the advice that my dad gave me, it was, he would say, Danny, in this country, he says, you can make 1,000 business mistakes. He says, America will give you another chance. He says, you make 1 or 2 bad personal mistakes and you'll pay for them for the rest of your life. And so when one day I'm a stockbroker at the time, and I'm sitting there in my office and somebody came up to me, a friend of mine told me that he was getting divorced. And I'm like, so I listened to the story and everything. And I looked around and like 9 out of the 10 offices around me, everybody there was getting divorced. And so I thought to my dad, I don't want to make this mistake. I stood up, I went into my manager's office. I said, today's my last day. He said, why is that? I said, I don't want to get divorced. And I started a new life and I did other things and I got other business and I got started. And it was the best decision I ever made. When you trust yourself and when you feel that you're living your purpose. And I hope that everybody out there listening to this, or even if you caught it any time at the right time of your life, that you could have that feeling of when you're in the right place, in the right lane, feeling good, feeling healthy, and looking forward to waking up in the morning. You do that, and you'll have the best life ever. Thank you so much, Chris Stone. Once again, great broadcast. Curt, you're the man. I'm the Deej. You guys go get them today.